Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, August 5th, 2024. Enjoy. Case file number 1750, written by Dead Like Latin. Trail of Disbelief, where bridges deceive. So I essentially grew up in the woods. I live in the middle of nowhere and spent more time in the forest than I did out of it. My whole family would go to my grandparents every weekend, and they had a huge property mostly made up of a forest that me and my cousins played in all the time. We all knew the woods pretty well, and from a fairly early age, we'd all be allowed to explore by ourselves as the likelihood of getting lost was slim to none, especially if we stayed on the trail. Within these woods was a cabin that my family had built together. It was common for us to all go there and hang out. It wasn't super deep in the woods, and the way there was almost a straight shot, aside from one turn near the entrance of the forest behind my grandparents' house, where you had to cross a bridge to get over a deep ravine and then turn left. After that first left turn, you walk straight on the trail and you end up at the cabin. It was a walk that I must have made at least 1,000,000 times before I turned 10. It was decently common for there to be one group of people at the cabin, and one day when I was about 10ish, exactly this happened. I was with the group at the cabin and decided I wanted to head back to the house, so I started on the walk. I remind you, it was almost impossible to get lost on this walk, but when I got to where I should have turned the corner and see the bridge and the back of the house, I only saw the bridge. Past the bridge was just more woods. I was extremely confused, and honestly, pretty scared, because no matter how much I tried to tell myself I must have taken a wrong turn, that just didn't make sense. There were no other bridges in my grandparents' woods, and there's no way I could have accidentally crossed into a neighbor's property in that short of a walk, even if I had somehow taken a wrong turn on a walk, where I stayed on a straight trail and somehow didn't notice. I knew these woods very well, and everything around suggests that across that bridge should have been my grandparents' house, but somehow it wasn't there. I was not crossing that bridge, absolutely not. I turned around and walked back to the cabin, and again, I'm almost certain I couldn't have taken a wrong turn, because the walk back to the cabin was identical to the walk from my grandparents' house to the cabin. When I got to the cabin, no one believed me when I recounted what happened. They assured me I just got lost somehow. In fact, my mom was mad that I didn't tell anyone I was leaving, and then was careless enough to get lost. When I brought up the fact that that was impossible because I saw the bridge, and there's no other bridges in the woods, they said I was lying to get out of trouble. This is only one of many weird stories I have that took place in these woods. It's one of those I don't bring up with family anymore, as they still believe I was lying, or they don't even remember it, so they dismiss it as a dream. I know it wasn't a dream. I still can't explain what it was though. Case file number 1751, written by Bubbly Opinion 99. Miracle in the Air. Survivor's Prayer. My uncle was a pilot and wanted to take me and my grandparents to my cousin's college graduation. I was 13. We were all waiting at the small airport outside when he touched down on a single-engine 4-seater plane. Don't know the real name of it. When he landed, I immediately got a gut-punch, stomach-dropping feeling. I wasn't scared of flying, but something inside me told me that something was wrong or off. I don't know if he landed funny or what, because nobody else seemed to react the way I did, but I had a very hard time shaking that uneasy feeling. We all loaded into the plane and took off. Not even a minute or two passes by, and we're now high above the tree levels, when suddenly, the engine stalls. I didn't realize it right away, but noticed that something was wrong again. Wrong, and noticed my uncle was intently focusing on turning the plane around. That's when I saw the engine had stopped. In a blink of an eye, we bank hard and start nosediving down. I closed my eyes and said my goodbyes to myself, and we all silently went down. There was a loud crash and noise, and I felt my whole body snap forward and back, and I saw a flash. Next thing I know, I feel like I'm okay, and so I open my eyes and see that I'm alive. I very quickly gather my wits about me and check on everyone else, and everyone seems to be also alive. I look out of the window because I hear something to my side and see the gas pouring out. I shake my uncle and tell him we need to get out now, and he springs into action, unbuckles his seatbelt, as do I, and I start asking if everyone is okay. My grandparents are in shock, but responsive, and we reach over, swing the door open, and get everyone out. We start walking away from the plane and see an ambulance arriving at the same time. People had seen the crash and called 911. The entire plane was destroyed. Wings snapped off, nose smashed, tail broken, and yet the area we were sitting in was completely intact. My uncle and I were okay. We had a massive bruise later on, where the seatbelt had held us, and I had a small headache. My grandpa was fine too, and my grandma had like 2 broken ribs, but otherwise okay. Still to this day, don't know how my gut knew something bad was going to happen. Biggest mystery of my life, besides the fact that we survived something catastrophic like that. Would you like my weekly and monthly compilations completely ad-free? If so, check out the link in the description to my Patreon, where for $3 a month, you can get them all completely ad-free. Case file number 1752, written by Moments of Zen. Unseen Hand, the card's command. It was an average Monday, and I had just finished vacuuming the house where I live alone. I carried the vacuum down the hallway to put it away in the spare bedroom, then grabbed a duster and started dusting. Now, in the spare bedroom's closet, there is a hatch in the ceiling that leads, presumably, to some sort of insulation space. I had lived in the house for only a few months at that point, and there had only been some odd occurrences that had made me wonder, jokingly, if there was somebody living up there, crawl space style, coming down at night to mess with things. So on this particular day, I decided to see. I shouted at the hatch, things like, "Hey, I know you're up there," and "Come out here, don't make me come get you." I finished up with, "I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at that point, I decided this wasn't worth it and went back to dusting. Then I stepped back into the hallway. The hallway I had just walked through not 60 seconds before, and there was a playing card. Just a single playing card, face down on the floor, lying on top of an Ethernet cord I had stretched down the hallway, and it definitely hadn't been there before. I picked it up and turned it over. It was a 4 of hearts. To this day, I have no idea how it got there. It freaked me out badly enough that I grabbed a weapon and searched the whole house. Found nothing, of course, but I have no realistic theories. There's no furniture in the hallway for it to have fallen from. I don't think it could have fallen from the vacuum, since I'd used it many times. There's no way a playing card could have been stuck inside, without it getting mangled or at least dirty. There was a painting hanging nearby that I had been messing with earlier that day, but again, no physical place on it for a card to be stuck. I did recognize the card though. It's from a deck that I owned, but hadn't used in a long time, which was safely inside a magnetically closed box under another box, inside that very closet where I'd just been yelling at the ceiling. But how one single card could have made its way out and onto the floor, in the brief time between when it wasn't there and then suddenly was? I'm usually pretty good at rationalizing weird things, but this time, I just got nothing. Case file number 1753, written by Yoshiki and Aruji. Sunny Day Twist, Reality Dismissed. So yeah, I wouldn't even say it was the sun. In fact, it definitely was not the sun. This was more like someone hit a switch on reality for just a second, half a second. And for context, I was in my living room with my girlfriend, and my dog just in the other room. I was reciting song lyrics to my dog as I was standing basically between rooms, and I get halfway through what I'm saying to my dog, and click, but it wasn't a noise. It was even more quiet than before, but literally for half a second. I pretty much instantly looked over to my girlfriend. Before I can even say anything, she asked me if I just saw that too. Now crazy part is, this has actually happened to me about 2 other times I can remember. One about a year ago, but I summed it up to my eyes playing tricks on me. Another time as a kid that I can only vaguely remember. I looked at other stories about the same thing happening, and people say mini strokes or maybe you just blinked. But for me and my girlfriend in the same room to experience this at the same time just makes 0 sense. I highly doubt we both had mini strokes simultaneously. And also, I highly doubt we both mistaken something as instinctual and common as blinking for our reality blinking off for half a second. Oh yeah, this was a very sunny day, and there was literally only natural light filling up the room. Not a single artificial light was on. Case file number 1754, written by Many Moons Lenore. Destiny's Play from then to today. One of my earliest memories is being in a Blockbuster looking at the back wall of a new release. I was there with a bunch of teammates for a slumber party a few towns over. I was looking at the wall of movies. Suddenly had this weird déjà vu feeling that the boy standing next to me was going to come up and talk to me and tell me about a movie I was watching. I hadn't seen his face yet in real life, but I saw it in the vision, if you will. After the déjà vu passed, the boy turned and did exactly that. His face was the same as what I had just seen in my head. He picked up a movie that had Rosie O'Donnell on the cover and told me that I should check out that one because he saw it the weekend before and it was really good. He was a few years older than me and really cute. So of course I grabbed it from his hand and said a quick thanks and ran to my friends, completely freaked out at what just happened. I never had déjà vu or anything like that happen again. Fast forward 12 years later, and I was standing in the same Blockbuster with my then boyfriend, who I met in college. He had grown up in that same town, and I was spending the night for the first time at his parents' house. We had been dating for a little over a year at that time. We were browsing together and trying to agree on a movie. He started telling me the story of how he scared a little girl while trying to be nice at the same Blockbuster when he was younger. I immediately had a weird fuzzy feeling and asked him if the movie had Rosie O'Donnell on the cover. And he looked at me, freaked out, and said yes it did. After there is no way that's possible discussion in the aisles of Blockbuster, we got our movie and left, thinking maybe it was just a weird coincidence, because of course it had to be. When I walked into his parents' house, I saw that his mom had gotten out old photo albums for me to see, and sure enough, there was the same boy I saw in that Blockbuster. We looked up the Rosie O'Donnell movie that night, and it was the same cover we both remembered. We've been married for 15 years and have 4 kids together. Beautiful. Case file number 1755, written by Simnestra, Guided in Night by a Stranger's Light. When I was in 5th grade, I went to science camp on a mountain in California. We had a night hike that was supposed to teach us about the different cells in our eyes, so we did it without any flashlights at all. Our eyes adjusted to just starlight, and it was actually pretty cool, until the counselors made us walk a stretch of the path alone, one by one. We were 10, and at least some of us were still afraid of the dark. Me. So I was far too anxious to listen properly to the instructions. One counselor went ahead through the bushes and radioed for the other to start sending kids. My turn comes up, and I drag my feet down the path until I hit a fork. I vaguely remember the counselor saying something about it. Or was I remembering wrong? Which way was I supposed to go? Was it even a fork, or was I just not able to see properly in the dark? Mind you, this was a pitch black mountain in California, with nothing around for miles other than the camp. I didn't want to get lost. I looked behind me, briefly considering going back the way I came, to admit that I was a dumb butt who didn't listen. But when I turned back to the fork, there was a man standing there. He was Asian, wearing wireframe glasses and a white t-shirt. It was barely 50 Fahrenheit on the mountain. I wasn't scared. I felt no malice from him. If anything, I was relieved to not be alone in the dark anymore. He gestured for me to go one way, so I did. Rejoined the rest of my class, and the counselor radioed to send the next kid. I didn't think anything of it for the rest of the trip. It took me until I was on the bus ride home, reflecting on the hike, to realize that I'd never seen him before. He wasn't one of the counselors leading the hike, he never came out with us, and he never emerged from the bushes after all the kids had done their solo walk. I have no idea who or what he was. Case file number 1756, written by Penny949. Disappearing Plea? Where could they be? I'm starting to get really weirded out by this. I'm traveling in Europe at the moment. My mom helped me out with some money as a gift for my birthday. I visited Italy, France, London, and Scotland. This whole time, I've been wanting to find a gift for her to say thank you. The first gift I bought was in France, a 7-inch record of an old 60s artist she loves. Me and my friend were on foot. He bought a record too. The guy in the record store put our purchases in separate bags and we walked home. I was holding the bag the whole way home and we didn't stop anywhere. When we got back to the apartment, he had his record and I simply did not have mine. It was gone. I mean it when I say I looked everywhere. Next stop, Italy. I painstakingly chose some gold earrings for my mom in Venice. I put them safely in a sealed makeup bag inside another sealed makeup bag. This is where I keep all the little gifts I've bought people. There are about 6 things in there. 1 week on, I am in my hotel and I open up the little case to look at my gifts and send my dad a photo of the earrings. The day before, I noticed that the earrings were indeed in there, safe and sound. While I was adding another gift to the case, every single item was there, except the earrings. They are literally just gone. I did not take them out at any stage. I tore apart my entire suitcase and luggage, even though I knew that was the only place they could be. I have not lost a single item on my 4-week trip, not even a train ticket, except for the 2 very valuable gifts I tried to buy my mom. Kindly, what the hell? For people saying it was my friend, I totally would have thought this too, but when we entered the hotel, he was truly only holding 1 bag with his 1 record in it. My record never even made it inside the apartment. Also, I was traveling completely solo when the earrings disappeared. Case file number 1757, written by We Are All Haunted. Spoon Mystique, a puzzle unique. The other day, I went to get a teaspoon out of my kitchen drawer, pulled out a spoon with a very distinctive shape that I had never seen before. I got a weird feeling in my chest when holding it. Shock at something not being what I expected, I guess, but just carried on. I asked my partner if he had accidentally brought it home from somewhere, and he said no. And I said I was kind of freaked out, because how did a spoon just randomly appear? He told me I was being crazy, and someone probably left it at our house. 2 days later when I wake up, he informs me that there is another random teaspoon. This one is from a Finnair airplane. The logo is stamped on the handle, and now he agrees with me that this is strange, and is also freaked out by it. We sent photos to any friends who had been at our house in the last month. We thought maybe it was a prank, though we are not prank people and neither are our friends, but none of them had ever seen them. We had some tradespeople fixing our roof a couple weeks ago, so we chalked it up to them somehow leaving 2 spoons in our kitchen, even though some things don't add up, like not seeing the spoons for weeks. They wouldn't have had any reason to go into our kitchen, and the spoons showing up days apart. But today, 4 days after the Finnair spoon appeared, it has now disappeared, and I can't find it anywhere. I put both of the weird spoons in a specific back section of our cutlery drawer. Neither of us had used them. What is happening? Case file number 1758, written by Gargle Hemlock. Mom's Feathered Embrace in a Bird's Grace. A couple of weeks after my mom died, I was driving home from work feeling very sad and a bit angry. I was pissed off at the universe for leaving me alone. I have no other living family left. She was the last. I was thinking about how we both loved birds and would always point them out to each other. I thought, if all that hippie spirituality stuff Mom loved is real, then the least she could do is send me a bird, maybe, as a kind of sign. It was a long drive, and I saw no birds at all. I thought, of course it isn't real. What a silly thing to think. I didn't see so much as a robin or a wren or anything. I parked and walked down the path to my house. While I was putting my key in the door, something colorful caught my eye. I turned. There, at the end of the path, was the most astonishing bird I've ever seen. Every color of the rainbow, a bright yellow gold head, scarlet chest, iridescent blue back, orange gold wings, black striping. It was jaw-dropping. It was the size of a chicken, but a bit taller, with a long tail. It just stood staring at me. I started to laugh, and it got spooked and flapped away over the fence. I live in a large city, which made it even weirder. My neighbor came outside and saw it too, so it wasn't a hallucination. I got into the house and started Googling colorful birds of that size and shape, and eventually found it. It was a Chinese golden pheasant? What the hell? There were no bird sanctuaries or zoos nearby. Never saw it again. I took it as my mom rolling her eyes at my cynical rejection of her hippie spirituality stuff, saying, "You want to see a bird? I'll send you a bird." It was so great. Case file number 1759, written by Narrate. Campus Quest, Shoe Repossessed. When I was in college, I used to go hiking and trekking a lot with my friends. We used to do it within the campus itself. Our campus was massive. It was an ancient institution that was spread across hundreds of acres of forest land, rocks, ponds, etc. Quite beautiful, but colossal. Once, on a hiking trip some 30 or so kilometers away from my dorm, I lost one of my hiking shoes. I was quite upset as I didn't want to ask my parents for money to buy a new pair, and I had loved this one. I wasn't sure where it went, but I was sure that it had fallen off a cliff when we went rock climbing. Quite a risky activity without any safety gear, but it was a beloved ritual on every full moon night when there was enough light. I had removed it briefly to sit cross-legged and tell ghost stories with my friends. I somehow returned with some difficulty without the shoe. A couple weeks after that incident, I was walking back from class, into the communal mess looking down and thinking of the shoe I'd lost. I looked up and, as though magic, the lone shoe was in front of me, literally in the middle of the road that led to the mess. It was no worse for wear and I had no idea who'd put it there. I rushed back to my room thinking it was the piece I had, but lo and behold, the other one was still under my bed where I'd kept it. I still don't know how it appeared in front of me like that, precisely when I was thinking about it, weeks after I'd lost it, so far away from where I lived. Case file number 1760, written by One Yogurt Closet 2138, When Familiar Roads Lead to Nowhere. My mom was driving me to my longtime best friend's house. I was older than 16, but don't drive due to disability. My friend and I had been inseparable for years, so I had made this drive across town many times. The ride was uneventful until we entered her neighborhood. The route to her house from there was very simple. Take the first right, and her house was at the end of the cul-de-sac on the right-hand side. We did that, but this time her house was not there. We backtracked, did the same thing, and nope, still not there. I called her, very confused. She told me that she would stay on the phone and stand in front of her yard so we could spot her. We repeated the route again, nothing. We finally went down the next street, just in case we were wrong somehow, but still no dice. As a note, the street sign never changed until we intentionally went down the second street. It always showed her correct street name. At this point, it feels like the Twilight Zone, and I'm panicking. I'm ready to turn around and go home, but we went down her street one last time, and there she was, waiting in her yard. There was no way to loop around to other streets or anything, so I have no idea how we could have missed it, especially when the route was so simple and we had driven it countless times. My friend and I ended up having a bad falling out a few years later, and although it wasn't anything sinister that caused a break, I still think of this situation and get an uneasy feeling when I see her on social media. Case file number 1761, written by Anonymous. The Woman in Pink, A Midnight Blink. Around age 8, I woke up in the middle of the night. There was a woman crouched down on the opposite side of my room, facing away from me. My parents always left my door cracked open and the hallway light on, so I could see her clearly. At first I thought she was my mom, and I almost asked her what she was doing, but when she turned around, I realized she was not my mother. She had blonde hair, big blue eyes, she was wearing a light pink sweatsuit and white tennis shoes. We lived in a secluded area by a forest and down a dirt road with only a few neighbors. We knew all of our neighbors, and she was not one of them. My parents always locked the doors and checked the window locks before they went to bed, and we have a dog that would have whined if a stranger came in. So I don't know how this woman got in our house. She was there for a long time, and I know I was awake, because the entire time my heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. I've still never been so afraid in my life, some 30 years later. I was too afraid to call my parents, whose bedroom was just on the other side of the wall, because I thought she would hurt them. I didn't sleep properly for years because the experience had terrified me that much. To this day, I know in my heart she was a real person, but I don't understand what she was doing there or how she got in. She was just taking her time and looking at all the random junk on my bedroom floor. Toys and Easter baskets that we had left lying about. Nothing interesting to a normal adult. And she was getting real close and checking on me and my sister in the bunk bed above to see if we were asleep. I pretended to be asleep. Was this a crazy woman who just stumbled into our house? Eventually, she left the room, and I fell back asleep and didn't wake up until about 5 a.m. when my father got up for work. All these years later, I wonder how she got in without being heard, and what she was doing. Why would you wear a pink sweatsuit and white shoes to break into someone's house? I just can't figure it out. I'd love to hear theories. By the way, when I told my parents the next morning, I think they were horrified, but told me that I must have been dreaming. Years later, they confessed that the whole thing majorly creeped them out, and the fact that I couldn't sleep for years made them extra suspicious that it wasn't a dream. I would wake up every night at like 3 a.m. and ask to sleep on the floor next to their bed for like 2 years, and I'd just lay there listening to every creak the house made for what seemed like an hour every night. Case file number 1762, written by your hot metal girlfriend. Mystery resolved. The book evolved. When I was in 5th grade, a friend gifted me a hardcover copy of all 3 Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark volumes in one book. This book quickly became my most prized possession, so I wrote my name inside the front cover just in case I ever lost it at school. At some point, I took my book with me to my dad's house for the weekend, which is in another city about an hour away from where I lived with my mom. I had left it at my dad's house that weekend, and I guess I just forgot to ever bring it back home with me. Well, eventually, my dad moved into a new home, and I figured my book mistakenly got thrown out. I was very sad about it, but accepted my reality. Fast forward a few years to 8th grade. I make a new friend in one of my classes, and we become very close very fast. I was hanging out at his house one day and decided to look through the books on his bookshelf. I see a copy of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the same one I had, that contained all 3 books in one. I pulled it out saying to my friend, "Wow, I used to have a copy of this too, no way." I opened the front cover, and right there at the top was my name, exactly how I wrote it back in 5th grade. My friend had absolutely no recollection of where that book came from. Case file number 1763, written by Clorox Ceiling Fan. Time Warp Drive, a Freeway Jive. I was coming home from spending an evening in LA. Lived in OC, lived in LA for a bit, know the area and freeways really well, and have an excellent sense of direction. Found myself headed in the opposite direction of where I needed to be heading, with no memory of switching to the northbound freeway. I was a little bit tired, but vividly remember getting off the main streets of the middle of the city and onto the southbound 101 freeway. My drive was around 40 minutes long at that point. Waze said so. All of a sudden, I look down at my phone and my drive is over an hour long. I'm on the 405 North, which, for anybody who doesn't know, is miles and miles away from the 101 freeway. A jolt of energy went through my body as though I had just woken up, and I was absolutely freaked out. I was nearing LAX, headed north. So I got off at the next exit and made a left and got onto the southbound 405. This was not the same direction or even the same freeway that I was on for at least 20 minutes. I have absolutely no clue how I got on this road. I started crying and flipping out but told myself to just relax and head home. I had to keep checking that I was going the right way. I was, finally. It was so freaky because I know these roads like I know every centimeter of my face. What do you think this could have been? How did I lose that time? Why do I remember those 20 minutes? Watching the time of my drive decrease as I was approaching my destination. Then with the snap of a finger, I was an hour away on a different freeway and in the wrong direction? Case file 1750. Trail of Disbelief, where bridges deceive. So one thing a lot of these stories have taught me over the years, in mental preparation for becoming a father one day, is give your children the benefit of the doubt. It's like a knife to my soul. Every time I read these stories where parents disbelieve or outright reject the thoughts of their children, put in some effort so they believe that you believe them. That trust has to run both ways. A lot of parents, I think, they only expect it one way. I don't know. Maybe I'll feel differently when I'm a father, but I expect not. Now, the question in this case, in this story, is where would you have been if you crossed that bridge to Terabithia? Now, I make that reference as a quick parallel, but I think it's more than that. I think it's more than your imagination. I think that transcended imagination and crossed into outright creation, or at least perception, perhaps of a different universe, which is relatively common. But then if you cross the bridge, are you stuck in a new universe permanently? Is it like a manifestation of choice? It's like you often see in movies and shows where if you die, you're in a limbo state, and you go to this place that is maybe a restaurant, a train station, or something, and there's a symbolic gesture you have to make, an act of will, like boarding a train or exiting through one door over the next. Choice is the final variable that even the architect can't account for. Caissons sur file 1751. Miracle in the Air. Survivor's Prayer. So I do think this is a quantum immortality story, eventually. The survival of it. But before that, you had a sense of premonition of what was going to happen, a gut feeling. Very strong, very clear, and very accurate, of course, in this case. Here's a question. If you die in one universe and you're engaged in quantum immortality, you zip over to a different universe, just your soul, but before in the other universe you were clairvoyant or at least had premonitions, do you retain that ability, that power in the new universe? Does it move with your soul, or is it related to the physical body? Maybe in birth, maybe something happens in your brain. There's slight differences in how it's constructed, how it's built. And because of those differences, they enable different parts of the brain to function together enough to enable premonition and stuff like that. I don't know. Is it tied to the soul or the body? A very interesting question, though. Now time for the quote of the day. Souls don't die. The Iron Giant. Rather fitting, I think, in this case. I watched it, of course, as a kid growing up. And I just found it funny how relatable it is as a movie to the stories I read on this channel. You know, speaking about metaphysical stuff and soul and everything, even though it's not talking about quantum immortality, it is about living on, persisting, even in death. And however you frame that, it's a beautiful thing. Caissons sur file 1752. Unseen Hand, the Card's Command. A spirit probably inhabits your attic or your whole home. Maybe not limited to the attic, but I was thinking of Gambit as a spirit. If you had an obsession with cards, you had superpowers, and then you die, well, you'd probably bring over those cards with you, or at least try to. Maybe that's the case in this situation, where the spirit was trying to bring up cards, and then you were shouting at it, and then it just wanted to like, hey, yeah, I'm here, don't freak out, here's a card, related to what you were talking about, number 4. Maybe if it had been number 5, the number that you had not mentioned that was in the series, well, that could have been even more notable, but still, pretty interesting. Caissons sur file 1753. Sunny Day Twist. Reality Dismissed. Yeah, agreed, it's not the sun. Has nothing to do with the sun at all. It's a local server cluster that is failing. And I think server clusters are responsible for different areas of the world that is simulated. Volumes of space, as we would call it. Space-time, in fact. So if an entire cluster goes out, well, for us, we just see it as a blip. In the real world, maybe it could take hours or something to fix, or maybe it is instantaneous. Maybe there is a time relation 1-to-1 between the simulation and the real world. It's just that it's automated. So another server cluster takes over, but there's a split second where we notice that something is wrong because nothing is processing. But yeah, as to it being a small stroke, there's no way. Is there anything in the world that is able to induce a stroke precisely at that time in multiple people at the same time in the same area? I don't think there's anything that can possibly do that, is there? And certainly nothing that was in your environment. And if it was, it would happen again and again, wouldn't it? So no, a simultaneous stroke, there's no way. If it was just you, well, even then I would discount it because of all the stories I've read in the past like this, but, you know, I could understand people saying it could be a medical-related issue, but in this case, no. If two people have the same exact experience at the same moment, and without telling each other, there's no priming or anything like that, like, oh, this might happen sometime, no. This happened entirely organically to both of you, simultaneously. So it really did happen. It's not a hallucination, it's not a stroke. It's the server having a stroke. There you go. Case answer file 1754. Destiny's Plea. From then to today. So you both have probably the best How We Met story that I've ever read. How I Met Your Mother. Well, I think this surpasses that, even though it's much shorter. Now, is it fate, destiny, something like that? I think it's just a strong link. And when souls are meant to be together, I don't believe there's just one, then those souls can infuse themselves in the environment and pull out information that the other might not be consciously aware of. So even as children, and I think the child's mind is more prone to these influences from the deeper soul, they can play host to stuff like that. And they were certainly right in this case, together for that long, having children together. It's just such a great story. I love it. Now time for the quote of the day. The more technology you use, the easier it is for them to keep tabs on you. Brill, from Enemy of the State. A good classic movie, speaking of the dangers that are especially expressed today with the surveillance apparatus that we have to live under. It's hard to have any privacy these days. But then again, it's the digital world. If you're putting yourself out there, how can you have privacy? Unless you're completely anonymous, maybe it simply is not possible anymore. Kind of a spooky thought. Case answer file 1755. Guided in night by a stranger's light. So I think this was your guardian angel, choosing his form, but only appearing to you in a mental state. So you were imagining him, but induced by the guardian angel. I don't think there was an actual Asian man wandering the woods in that area that the guardian angel could possess. So I think it was in your mind. Through your mind's eye, you could say. And I don't think there was anything nefarious at all about it. It's your guardian angel, just trying to calm your spirits. I think people have this idea of guardian angels as being purely there to protect you from death, but I think it goes much deeper than that. Guardian angels can be there to even comfort your soul if you're particularly scared. Especially I think if there's relevance later on. Maybe if he didn't appear, then the probable future would have been something very different in a negative way. It's hard to say, hard to see all the dominoes that could possibly fall. And again, I don't believe you can ever predict the future. Even the developers or guardian angels can't, but they can probably see possible futures extrapolated. It's like, weird comparison, but predicting the weather, the climate in the future with climate change and all that, yeah, it's kind of political now too, but I won't get too deep into that. But basically the idea is you have different models that are trying to predict it, and you don't depend on just one model. You look at ensemble of models, like hundreds and hundreds of them. Because just one, maybe just the one will be exactly what the future holds, but no, it's probably going to be some mixture or some average of them, and you can't really know which one. You can just make educated guesses, and of course that applies to real life, but to an exponential level of more complexity. The further out you go in the future, the harder it becomes to predict any individual future. They can just look at averages and say, okay, if I don't help now, probably this wouldn't end well for him or affect someone else even. The things they're considering on the holistic level, probably impossible to even imagine. So, that makes me think, maybe the real world isn't managed by humans actually. Maybe it's managed by a sort of advanced AI. But not Matrix style, where they're harvesting our energy, which doesn't make sense. It was meant to be our brain capacity, but not nefarious like that, where we're slaves, or like cattle. No, just managed for our pleasurable experience. So maybe it's trying to tailor the experience per what we want out of it. Just spitballing. Case answer file 1756. Disappearing Plea. Where could they be? Yes. The disappearing plea to the universe, like, what the hell is going on? Universe, talk to me. Answer me. It's like trying to pray to God, like, give me something here, This isn't normal. Help me out. I'm going crazy. You're not crazy. Relax. It's okay. But it is weird, no matter how normal it is to read. Case answer file 1757. Spoon Mystique, a puzzle unique. What I find interesting about this story is how you instinctively knew that the spoon was more than just out of place, like someone dropped it off accidentally. You knew there was something deeper going on, like it was from a different universe. I don't think you consciously had that thought specifically, but you knew holding it was wrong. So maybe there is a way to detect when objects or even people, not their souls, but their physical body, are in the wrong universe. Maybe that's also why we feel uneasy if we see our doppelganger. The doppelganger is from a different universe, the physical body. They're not there forever, just for a bit, usually. But maybe that's why we feel uneasy, because we can detect when things are not supposed to be there. And if that's the case, then there is a scientific method to doing this. We just don't know what it is yet. It's like back in the day. People didn't know how birds navigated so efficiently, so well, over such long distances. Now we know they use the electromagnetic field of the planet. It was pure mysticism to us. There was no possible way that we could see, that we could measure, to determine how they were doing that. So I think it's similar to this. It's just another layer deeper into science eventually. We'll be able to discover the properties of matter to a greater extent that could show us the differences between objects from different universes, and maybe we're able to detect them now in a way that we don't yet fully understand. Now, time for the quote of the day. I'm only brave when I have to be. Being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble. Mufasa from Lion King. And you know, he had some pretty good quotes in that movie, I have to say. But yeah, that is entirely how you should approach life. It's like martial arts, learning self-defense, how to fight. You don't learn how to fight to go pick fights with other people. You learn how to fight to defend yourself and others if necessary. And generally speaking, you should try to avoid fighting at any cost. There are situations where it is warranted, but just be very careful. Pick your fights wisely, as they say. Case answer file 1758. Mom's feathered embrace in a bird's grace. This is a touch of beauty indeed. The way you describe the bird, gorgeous. I wonder, was this your guardian angel sending you this bird? The reason I say that is, well, because I'm always trying to peg a square into a circle. It doesn't always fit between quantum immortality and guardian angels. I believe both are true and exist. There's so many stories of them involved that there's no way they're all fake. One or the other, or both, really, are true. At least the majority of them. So if that's the case, how do they fit together? Because why would you need a guardian angel to save you from death? If dying just means you're a hop and a skip over to the next universe, and there's so many that until you die of natural aging in all universes, you're not done. I don't know, it's hard to say. Maybe for some reason you're not supposed to go to a different universe yet or something. But also, I think guardian angels, when not dealing with death, they can be there just to help ease your soul, ease your consciousness. For some reason, maybe it's important that you felt better. Again, trying to extrapolate to potential futures of so many ensembles that it's impossible to predict just one, especially the further out you go. But yeah, I could see that. Or maybe your guardian angel just liked you. I mean, if it's not an AI, or if it is a sentient AI, if it's just humans, they could have, personal bias. If they're meant to be looking out over someone, that's their job. They could grow to enjoy the person, connect with them. And if they see you in pain, they, probably wouldn't want to see you in pain. If they have authority to prevent that pain, or try to ease it a little bit, well, they would do so, right? So that's what I'm thinking on this, trying to square quantum immortality with guardian angels. And in this case, I think it's just a guardian angel being a good guy, pretty much. Case answer file 1759. Campus Quest, Shoe Repossessed. Okay, so when it comes to DOP, what if the act of conscious thought about the object you lost, focused single-minded thought in any given moment, raises the queue of solving the issue in the real world by the simulation? Maybe there's a queue, a list, and if someone is never thinking about the object they lost, then it falls down on the queue because, it's not a priority for those developers, the managers, because the person is never thinking about it, so they don't really care. We'll return it when we get time, but better to focus on people who are constantly thinking about the object they lost. That makes some sense to me, and I'll play with it. I'll start thinking more about the tennis ball I lost, although even then, maybe it's not just how much you're thinking about it. Maybe it's about the importance of it. Losing a shoe is more important because, walking with one shoe is pretty terrible. I don't know. Something like that. Importance of the item weighed in a basket with how much you're thinking about when the item was lost and all that. Yeah, some combination of that probably affects the queue. It's not just first come, first serve. It would explain why some objects come back immediately and some never come back at all. Case answer file 1760. When familiar roads lead to nowhere. Okay, so we have entire server cluster failure, which is where everything seems to blink out of existence, light and sound, for a split second, a second. What if there's server cluster failure, but only on the memory aspect? So everything that's already loaded remains loaded, and that functions perfectly. But the memory can't load in new data. So what if a neighborhood has like a base template that is loaded in when you're approaching it, but the higher detail isn't loaded in until you get very near to it? So because it couldn't load in the data for you correctly into your mind, then the entire neighborhood simply functioned only as a base template until you left, went to the other street, and then came back. And then they had time to fix the issue with the server, and everything loaded back in correctly. Now, in cases like that, it's not like an object going missing, where that is more easily dismissed, they can solve it later on, not an immediate issue. An entire neighborhood being out of place, well, that people will notice, people will talk about that, so that's a higher priority. So that's why it was fixed so quickly, in my estimation. Now time for the joke of the day. If the person who named walkie-talkies named everything else, stamps would be called licky stickies, defibrillators would be called hardy starties, pregnancy tests would be called maybe baby, lamps would be called lighty brighty. Very cute sayings, and I think I'll adopt the pregnancy test one, maybe baby. That's pretty adorable. Okay, Sensor File 1761. The Woman in Pink, a Midnight Blink. So a mentally unstable person that somehow circumvented all your security to such an adept level that no one ever noticed she was there, even after the fact, after you told your parents? No way. It must be a modern spirit. A woman who died relatively recently, probably in that house, and it's probably the case that she had kids. Maybe those kids died too, or maybe they were left behind and moved away now. But she still wants to feel like she has children, so she's looking at you, not wanting to scare you, wanting to make sure you're asleep, while she looks and peruses around, trying to reconnect with the children she once had. So all the junk on your floor, the toys and stuff, was precious to her, in ways that we can't even understand. Okay, Sensor File 1762. Mystery resolved. The book evolved. Those threads of fate, the ensemble models predicting the future, they would have to align so perfectly for this to just be random happenstance. Well, there's no way, right? It's impossible. Some force, some will place that book there for you to find it again. Why? I couldn't say. There's too many dominoes to fall for things that it could affect. You know, having that book maybe makes you appreciate horror stories even deeper, and maybe you go on to be the next Stephen King. I don't know, something like that. Never actually read much Stephen King, just know his movies. The Mist was phenomenal. The ending, my God. But in a nutshell, something or someone clearly wanted you to have this book. We can't know why. We can only know that a will was involved. There's no other explanation. Okay, Sensor File 1763. Time Warp Drive, a Freeway Jive. Okay, so another space-time portal while driving. They are so frequent in the road areas, and you know, the government does manage roads. It makes sense that if they're placed by human beings, it would be the government in charge of that. Now why? You know, testing technology, maybe trying to analyze this natural phenomena that they discovered and trying to replicate it, testing it. So far seems okay. Again, maybe some missing 411 cases are actually related to the government testing this technology. People literally are just driving, and then they are materialized inside the Earth or out in space or in some place where, you know, they can't survive, and then they just go missing. Because there's no evidence of these portals. Only if they're unstable is there any visual or auditory indication. Otherwise, they are completely seamless. They blend in. Interesting, actually, when you think about it. If a space-time portal is in front of you, presumably, I mean, no one's reported anything otherwise, you just see what's normally in front of you. It's like trying to design an invisible car. You have to project the image from behind the object to the front. So somehow these portals are projecting the image of what's behind them to the front. So no one is like looking forward and everything is distorted, and they obviously would swerve out of the way most of the time. If these are designed, they're very well designed, enough to even create invisible cars and planes. I don't know how they could possibly do that, but it does appear that that is the case. This brings new light and new impact to the Department of Transportation. The Department of Teleportation. Oh boy. Not time for the joke of the day. If the USA is so great, then why did someone make a USB? The next version, USA 2.0. Good at data transfer. That's something. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.